Hey guys, and welcome to No Longer Hidden. My name is Shana Marie, and I am back with another word from the Lord. Before we get started, I ask that you guys will go ahead and take me back to God. Ask God if I received this word directly from Him and it came to me, or did I take this word from someone else? Ask God to show you my heart posture, if He's appointed me this ministry, or if I appointed myself this ministry because I felt as if I've gone through enough to share. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it. Now, this word, once again, it's a warning, and it is a warning for God's chosen ones. This one is for God's chosen ones who have been, who have gone through the pruning, the plucking, the processing, and has crossed over and went into the promised land, has received their wealth transfer, has received all the blessings that they were waiting for while they were going through the pruning season. And they're pretty much out there doing the Lord's work, but some of them aren't. So the title of this word is Demolishing Strongholds, a divine call to accountability. Some of God's chosen have forgotten their responsibility, have forgotten why they went through the pruning, the plucking, have forgotten why they were chosen. Some of them have taken their wealth and decided that they weren't going to help the oppressed, that they decided that they're only going to help themselves. They're living in these big homes and things of that nature, and they have totally forgotten why they were chosen. They have totally forgotten their responsibility, the responsibility that God has given them. So we're going to go over a couple of Bible verses, and of course God is going to continue to give me revelation from some of these Bible verses that He has brought to my attention to help bring this word together. So let's get started. So I actually finished this word. I got this word November 19th, and today is December 3rd. Sorry guys. So usually I will write down the time that I started, but for some reason I didn't. And the time that God had me look was the time that I finished, which was 11:31. And 11:31 means naked, bare, exposed. So we're gonna just go right into it, and I'll explain what that means once we go deeper into the word. So we started off with Amos 3 verses 14 through 15, and it says, and I'm reading from my Bible, NIV version. It says, "On the day I punish Israel for her sins, I will destroy the altars of Bethel. The horns of the altar will be cut off and fall to the ground. I will tear down the winter house along with the summer house. The house adorned with ivory will be destroyed, and the mansions will be demolished, declares the Lord." Now, God has given some of His chosen these houses, and He has given them these beautiful lavishing homes, but they have forgotten God. Remember, I said they have forgotten God. So some of them have become very materialistic. Okay, so excuse my son, he's in the back sleeping. The word iniquity came, and I said, let me look up what iniquity means. And it says, a conscious decision to hurt someone else, a rebellion against God's laws, a bending, twisting, or distorting of the law of God's word, a violation of a right or duty, wicked acts, immoral conduct or practices. Examples are murder, adultery, deceitfulness, broken faith, and violence. Some of God's children have been doing some of these things. Some of his chosen ones have been doing this. So, remember, so I said, he had me write down in my notes. Sorry, guys. Says, those of us that are chosen have a responsibility to live up to. And some of you haven't been living up to that responsibility. God has been giving you warnings and you haven't been taking heed. So this isn't news to those of you who may be watching this, or even those that you may see that are chosen and you see them falling. This isn't news to them. Some of them don't even know how to even begin to come out of, you know, that hole that they've dug for themselves. So they just stay in it. And they've gotten warnings, but they don't know how to come out of those strongholds, right? So God is demolishing those strongholds. They didn't know how to come out of the stronghold. So we're going to go back to number 1131, which means naked, bare, exposed. God is about to expose some of them. He's about to take away those houses, take away the wealth, take away all the things that he's blessed them with because they have forgotten their responsibility. Okay. Sorry, guys. So some of these chosen ones who have gotten these warnings are still walking around with this false confidence, as if they're still confident in the Lord. They're still confident in who they are, when really they have lost their identity. Because if anyone that knows their identity will know their responsibility, right? So they have lost their identity. They don't know who they are. They don't remember who they are. They don't remember their role, right? So we're going to go to Amos 6 and we're going to read verses 1 and then verses 3 through 7. Okay. And it says, woe to you who are complacent in Zion. Okay. There's more to it, but that's all that stood out to me. Majority of these chosen ones who have fallen off, who have forgotten who they are, they've become complacent. They're complaining to God. Lord, I've done this. I did this. I went through this. Why isn't this working? Why is it that when I'm fasting, you know, these things aren't breaking off of me? Why are these things happening to me? And they're still not taking heed to the warnings that God has been putting out. Okay. Some of them are actually about to go into exile. Some of God's chosen ones have become materialistic and focus on self glorification. It's all about them. They totally forgot that everything that they've received is not just for them, but is also for us to bless those who God has put in our path, in our ministry, or who God has connected us to. Okay, so some of them have forgotten. And I'm going to keep saying that because I also, if this word isn't for you, still take this and really understand that it is very important that when God blesses you, when you do go into your promised land, that you do not forget, and I'm taking this as well, that we don't forget why God chose us and why he trusts us with the wealth and whatever, every blessing that he's about to bestow upon us. Don't forget our role and our responsibility. Okay. So I wanted to look up the word exile. And it says the forced expulsion of someone from their home country or land. So remember, they've crossed over into the promised land. So some of them might have to go back into, it might go into exile. So expulsion is like expel. So think about in school, you know, you get expelled from school for a little bit. That doesn't mean that God has said, you know what, I no longer consider you my child, or, you know, God hasn't written them off. What that means is that they need to go back into the wilderness or wherever it is that God needs to take them to remind them, hey, get back in alignment. Okay. So some of them have to go into exile so that they can get back into alignment. Of course, that comes with whatever punishment God sees fit for them just depends on how deep they were in this, you know. So it says, they have become complacent, prideful, materialistic, and have turned their back to the suffering. They have forgotten why God has chosen them and who God has called them to be. It says, you are not being a great representation of who God is. Okay. So reading verses 3-7, it says, you put off the day of disaster and bring near a region of terror. You lie on beds adorned with ivory and lounge on your couches. You dine on choice lambs and fattened calves. You strum away on your harps like David and improvise on musical instruments. You drink wine by the bowlful and use the finest lotions, but you do not grieve over the ruin of Joseph. Therefore, you will be among the first to go into exile. Your feasting and lounging will end. Now, reading that also reminds me that when God brings us into isolation and we go through the wilderness, God is pruning us and plucking us of the things that we were blind to. You know, he's making us clean again. And when he makes us clean again, he brings us back, or he brings us into the darkness to be the light, to help those who need to see again. So we are vessels that God uses to minister to those who need help, who need to also be delivered. Okay. And so when I read that, that's what I get. Like, they have forgotten that they were there to help those who were blind, who are in darkness, and they see what's going on, but they're not doing what they were supposed to do. They decided that they are just going to praise the material things. They're going to keep their eye on the material things and you know, party pretty much, like, you know, just party all the time, drinking bowlfuls of wine and, you know, getting drunk and things of that nature. I don't want to say get drunk because that's not what it says, but it says to drink wine by the bowlfuls. Okay, so yeah. So I also went to Revelations 2 verses 4, and it says, yet I hold this against you. You have forsaken the love you had first. They have forsaken God. They have forsaken God simply because, and I'm going to keep on saying it, they have forgotten. Okay. Revelations 3 verse 16, it says, so because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. So they have allowed wealth to lead them into becoming lukewarm. So the wealth wasn't just for you, chosen ones. It was also for you to also bless my children, those who were oppressed, right? Some of you will become desolate and even afraid to mention the name of the Lord. You have been ignoring God's warnings. The last thing God led me to was Isaiah 58, verses 6-10, and also 13-14. But before I read that, I'm going to give you the definition of the word oppressed, because some people may not know what that is. And oppress is exploit, take advantage of, or mistreat. Help those that are in need. Okay? So it's pretty much people who are in need. Okay, and majority of these people who were oppressed were led by God to go to those said people who God has chosen, who had the money, who had the ability, who were blessed with the gifts to help those people, but they decided to look away, to turn the other way and act as if they did not see. They, in other words, they turned a blind eye to those people who needed help. They turned a blind eye. So I'm going to go ahead and read Isaiah 58 to you guys. Please forgive me. I did not have it ready. So 6 through 10, it says, "This is not the kind of fasting I have chosen to loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke. It is not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter. When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to run away from their own flesh and blood. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, 'Here I am.' If you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves if you spend yourselves in behalf of your hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness and your night will become like the noonday." Okay, and 13 says, "If you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath and from doing as you please on the holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honorable, and if you honor it by doing your own way and not doing as you please or speaking idle words, then you will find your joy in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride in triumph on the heights of the land, and to feast on the inheritance of your father Jacob. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken." So when I read that, what that reminds me of is the revelation that I got is majority of you guys are fasting. The chosen ones are fasting, but you're going back to your old ways. You're going back to what you're trying to fast and break. You're not doing the work of the Lord. You're not feeding the homeless or helping the homeless or the oppressed. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. It's like you're fasting for no reason, in a sense. You're not fasting the proper way. Some of you are fasting and going back into the very thing that you're trying to break. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So God is not pleased with that. God is saying, once again, this is a warning for his chosen ones who have received the wealth transfer and has been shifted into the promised land and has been told what the responsibility is, and they're not doing it. So excuse me, if God has been warning you, take heed to the warning. If God is calling you to fast, you need to fast and do what God has been calling you to do, and break away from those very things that are causing you to become lukewarm. Okay? That's not why you're there. You are to be the light in the darkness. And it also says something about that too. Okay? And it says, and satisfy the needs of the oppressed. Then your light will rise in the darkness. And I did talk about that. God did talk, God gave me the words to speak and talk about us being the light in the darkness, why we go through the wilderness season. So please don't forget what God has brought you from. Don't forget what you had to go through to get where you are. Some of you may go into exile. Some of you, there still may be a chance for you to be redeemed. That is solely between you. It just depends on who you are. Take everything back to God. Please pray and ask God if this word is for you. Those of you who know that this word isn't for you, also just take heed to the fact that it is very easy to slip out of the will of God when we are not at his feet daily, when we don't take heed to his warnings. Okay, so With that being said, guys, my name is Shana Marie. This is no longer hidden, and I will be back when the Lord sends me.